You are live.
Michelle, are you ready? And with the pledge in a moment of time. I pledge
allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Robbins.
Here.
Commissioner Rushton.
Present.
Commissioner Bailey. Present. Chairman Wessel.
Here.
Commissioner Sorswell. Here. Commissioner Audit. Here. Commissioner Wagner. Present. All present.
Thank you. We have several sets of minutes to approve if we so wish. We motion to approve any of them? Mr. Rushton?
Mr. Chairman, yes, I would move to approve the executive session Tuesday, June 14th, 2022, regular session Tuesday, June 21st, 2022, and public hearing that took place Tuesday, June 21st, 2022.
Second. Any discussion? All those in support say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Any action on executive board session?
I would like to hold that over until next meeting. I did notice in listening to the finance committee meeting that there was a retraction from the auditor in regards to his report.
Bring that up next month. We have several changes on the agenda, and we'll try to go over this slowly. The consent agenda, does anybody see anything we need to pull off of there? Then I think we'll move the audit discussion down to after some of the guests that are here that are making short reports. So we will go right down to the first one on the agenda will be the drainage district that Commissioner Lautner has added to the agenda, if you're in agreement. And then we will go down to the area agency on aging. We're going to take the brownfield redevelopment authority off the agenda for tonight at Trudy's request. And we are going to take the drain commissioner's resolution off the agenda at the drain commissioner's request. We will then move down to number 12, which is the late addition on acceptance of a donation. Then the event tracker software. Then we will go to the late addition request number 3, which is a September regular session meeting date change. Then if you're in agreement, we'll go back up to the administration. And then we will end with agenda item late addition that I asked to be on a motion about community mental health. Did I get everything?
I think so, yes.
Did you get that, Madam Clerk?
Yep, we got it.
Thank you, and I apologize for the changes. We've done some of those to accommodate the 2 deletions from the agenda and some to accommodate the people that are here to speak to those agenda items. At this time, we have public comment. Is
No.
Did you vote on that?
Oh, we did not. I have a motion to accept the agenda. Yes.
Move to approve the agenda as amended.
Moved and seconded. All those in support, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. We have an agenda. Thank you. We now are at the public comment section. If anybody wishes to come and address the board, please identify yourself, please. Thank you.
Ann Schluter, like Leelanau. I brought today, this is Conrad Coles. This is his voter card that was sent to him. The funny thing is, he hasn't lived in this residence for 10 years. He's also been dead for 10 years. Just yesterday, I pulled up that, yes, in fact, he is registered to vote. So hopefully we can move it. This is his gravestone, his obituary on this sheet. So may I give it to the clerk? You can get him off the voter roll. And I realize we do have more registered voters than eligible. So if the clerk needs help or anything and wants volunteers, we can go over the registry and look over that. And then I was more concerned too for implementing hand count ballots for our elections to secure our elections, regaining the people's trust. I went to the Leland Fire Station voting machine test run on Friday, July 15th, 2022 at 1 p.m. Lisa Brookfield stated to us that this is how they've been doing testing for years, and it was set up for Michelle Crocker. I don't know how accurate that is because weren't those machines bought 2 years ago? So I don't know if that changed the procedure at all. But Lisa informed us that monitoring to the Dominion machines that we get the packet from a vendor to test them. So we get a packet full of ballots that we run through those machines. Sandy, during the voting machine test in Sutton's Bay, stated the vendor was Dominion. So we're using Dominion packets to test the Dominion machines to tell us that they're providing a fair count for our county. So we're having the machine that we want to test give us the packet to test them. And then does our county pay for these testing packets from the vendor? And then Lisa stated in the packet, 38 pre-filled ballots. And then there's a spreadsheet to tell us what those ballots say. What would it take for our county to do its own ballots to ensure a proper testing instead of the Dominion? Why would we disenfranchise our own local control of our elections? Lisa stated we did it this way because Michelle Crocker told her it was hard to fill out test ballots along with too much time and money. According to the test procedural manual, pages 18 through 39 show what the bare minimum is for the test to do our own and no maximum limit to the amount of ballots we can test. It is time for us to start doing our own ballots. Lisa Brickfield was nice enough to hold up the ballots for us, fanning them out to see what some of them were. Our ballots that we are testing from Dominion are printed in, filled in circles. We have blue, red pen, and Sharpie. I asked her to repeat it. She did, which was very nice of her. I asked why are we testing ballots with printed and filled in circles? No one votes with a printer. I want this to be checked. And then because it was just verbal and she double confirmed it, I looked on the manual and yes, it says noted twice that they do use printed filled in circles for the ballots. All the ballots are arranged in the machine and yes, the printed ballots do count. The voting count tape is printed out. The tape of the vote count comes out of the Dominion machine and compared to the Dominion spreadsheet that is given to us. The crazy thing is, it is never compared to the ballot. That printout doesn't compare to the ballot. The spreadsheets are never compared to the ballots. We don't know what those ballots say, and we're trusting the Dominion machine with that tape to tell us what the spreadsheets say, and we never check what the physical bullets on those are filled in. So Lisa said this process has been done for years, and we check with the sheet and the tape because it's easier and faster. We never check the ballots. Our county and our clerks are not protected by this process of certification. Our own machines are not even kept under lock and key and left in a room in the fire station where anyone can get access to it too. A hand count of paper ballots during the election is the only way to go to know all of our legal votes are counted. Right now, you certified something that we never even checked the ballot points if it matched the numbers. This isn't a certification process. This is showing you how you can steal an election. And I can give this to the clerk so she can remove this person that's been done for 10 years and registered.
Yes, please come forward.
So you have what I said, so it can be quoted, right? Scan it in. But you can scan that in, please have my request.
Okay, I'm new, so I don't know the procedure.
Just identify your name if you will, please.
Okay, my name is Carrie Onan. You don't need to know what township I'm in or anything?
Be helpful.
Okay, we live in Centerville Township. And the first time I ever saw the lady that just spoke was last Friday, Mrs. Schluter. hope I said it right, was last Friday at the Leland Public Accuracy Test. And everything Mrs. Schluter just said about the test that day is accurate. I was there and I can attest to everything she just said. And I too have those same concerns. I also attended the Sutton's Bay accuracy test yesterday. I don't have the dates, I'm sorry. But basically I found the same thing. I found the same test, the same issues, and I have the same concerns about that as well. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Anybody else? Bill?
My name's Bill Wiesner, Elmwood Township resident. And as I've done the last 9 times, here's a 10. We demand honest elections in our Leelanau County by replacing Dominion voting machines with secure paper ballots. You can read my first 8 flyers at tcfamily.org, and I'll add these recent too as soon as I get them done. This handout is it's got 3 parts. This one at the top is revisiting when I first talked to Michelle, the county clerk, even before I came to a meeting. She'd mentioned, or I think I brought up a clerk in down by Hillsdale. Her name's Clerk Stephanie Scott, and she said she got into a lot of trouble. Well, yeah, anybody standing up on this issue seems to be getting in trouble, but what we're really looking for is the truth, rather than if you're getting in trouble. If you get in trouble for a good reason with people that maybe are wrong on the truth, then that's a good thing. So anyway, I want to leave part, I might come back to this, but anyway, here's what the clerk said. The embattled, it's like in the middle there, the embattled clerk describes her feud as a battle over who owns the tabulator and who has rights to inspect or service it. I mean, if it were honest, we'd be able to look at these things. The county clerk's office and now Secretary of State are demanding I drop off my machine for unfettered access, and God only knows doing what to it, she said. When you have a fox guarding the hen house, somebody's got to stand up and guard the hens. So, and then there's some other clerks nearby that say, you know, she didn't really do what was right. But again, I counter. If she found the truth and then she did exactly what was right, she stood up. And that's what leading into the second article. This one came out just yesterday, a lawsuit. It's a bombshell new lawsuit, cyber expert report of raw data shows machine manipulation of Michigan 2020 election. And you can follow, I didn't put the link on, I just oversight, but when I do the final one, it'll be on there where you can go watch the show. It's 45 minutes, this clerk, that's Stephanie Scott that they talked about. Well, this is a lawsuit that came out yesterday. And basically what she found out is that the Secretary of State wanted all the clerks in the whole Michigan to destroy this memory stick that they used at the beginning of the elections. And that was the only place this information was on these sticks. And you're not supposed to destroy any records for 22 months, but that's what she asked. So this lady, 2 different Stephanies. One's the lawyer, spelled differently. Stephanie Scott's the clerk that stood up in Clark Township, I think, or that's her last name. But anyway, they found that there was 11.5% difference in the records from the stick that they wanted destroyed and the state records, which were accessed through a FOIA request. So please read through that. If that was extrapolated over all Michigan, it would be 800,000 votes swing, where you wouldn't know where those votes were coming from. It's all explained in there. But I want to read the last little section here. This is, it's way down at the bottom on the right column. I had to make it a little smaller font to fit. Nye County, Nevada commissioners vote for paper ballots. That's what we want to see, is a vote here, like there is in other counties in the country. How much evidence do we need to see that there's fraud in this, in these voting machines? In what may become a trend, they're going to exclusively paper. They want decentralized. The state of Michigan's pushing for centralized, all power in the hands of the state. How about we do it here locally? You seem to run a tight ship, probably much tighter than the state of Michigan does. And that's the way it originally was. Professor David Clemens, who is working with groups nationwide investigating election fraud, said every county should be sprinting towards a solution, racing one another on who can get rid of the machines faster. But we, the people, have to show up at the county meetings and demand action. I'm out of time, but it goes on with a couple more powerful paragraphs. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Any other?
Hello, my name is Nancy Popa, and I'm here today on behalf of the Lake Leelanau Lake Association and the 475 households of Leelanau County that are members. The Lake Association's been dedicated to enhancing and protecting the water quality of Lake Leelanau for over 42 years. The pristine and high-quality lakes in Leelanau County that we all love and enjoy are largely that way because of low nutrient levels, specifically low levels of phosphorus and nitrogen. Aging or failing septic systems are unable to properly process wastewater, and as a result, these systems are a key source of nitrogen and phosphorus, which is released directly into our lakes. These nutrients promote the growth of aquatic plants and algae, which eventually decay, using up the oxygen in the water. They form organic matter that falls to the bottom of the lake and creates a mucky bottom that nobody likes. Eventually, if there's enough plant growth, all of the oxygen will be used up, and aquatic life, such as fish, amphibians, will fail to thrive. High nutrient levels also provide conditions that enable the invasive species Eurasian water milfoil to grow even faster. Perhaps most importantly, aging or failing septic systems release human fecal bacterial into the water that our kids swim in. For many years, the Lake Association has advocated strongly for septic system inspections that require upgrades when a septic system is non-permitted, improperly maintained, or failing. We call on the commission today to take the same action a number of other communities in Michigan have already taken. Please implement a septic inspection program in order to keep our beautiful lakes clean and healthy. Thank you.
Campbell?
Evening. I'm Alan Campbell. I just want to introduce myself. I'm running for county commissioner, and I kind of cut my teeth at these meetings 35, 40 years ago, and I have to say that they have not grown boring, and they certainly they continue to be lively. So, and that's wonderful, isn't it? Have folks coming and unafraid and actually proud to come here and express their opinions. So I may be calling you up if I got questions. Please feel free to call me, and I appreciate all you guys' service. So thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Linda Shimmick. My address is Empire. I live in Casson Township. I have nothing prepared, but I want to go back to the election integrity. There are so many questions in people's minds, and I don't believe in reality, it's a conspiracy theory. We all want to trust one another. We want to trust the system. And so I think when people are questioning the processes that they've been seeing, it's not an attack on anybody. It's, we need to, if we're going to, we need to understand that what we're being told is correct. And so if there's a question in voters' minds, I mean, I had someone recently tell me when I invited her to an event that I was having, why should I even vote? My vote doesn't count. And that's sad. And I think all of us question whether or not, and I'm not talking just Leelanau County, we're talking about the whole country. But when a group of us present our concerns, I hope that it allows you to consider the possibility that there is something that needs to be looked at, just to be sure that we're not being taken advantage of in some way, because things can be manipulated, and so easily these days, always have. And if there was a problem in the 2020 election, I don't think it's going to be one and done. And it doesn't mean that it hasn't happened prior to this, that things evolve, things are planned, things continue to accommodate whatever the mindset is of people that are making decisions. And so I don't want anyone to think the clerks or whatever, that this is a personal vendetta. It's not. We just want to be sure that the system that we've been given to use and trust can be trusted. So I would hope that, and once we become aware that there's a possibility of this, and if we just turn our, say, well, what can we do about it? Well, 2020 was 2020. We need to go on. But that isn't really the attitude that we need to take. We need to be sure that we can be ensured of an honest election and that our votes do count. And there is a group of people that would be so willing to help any township clerk, the county clerk, to work on these, the voter rolls. I'm not concerned that in Leelanau County, we had people voting that are dead. There are names that need to be taken off. But I'm thinking probably in parts of the country, if a card like Mr. Kohler, or whatever his name was, received at his home in another part of the country, somebody might have taken advantage of that. But we want to trust that people don't. But obviously, it's a possibility. So I'm just asking that you open up your minds to the possibility that we need to be sure that we aren't being too trusting in those systems that we're using. And voting isn't something that we've become, so that we want things so quickly done, where we become so electronic and digitally manipulated. We may need to just invest more time in these elections and do the paper ballots that we know we can trust, that we have people counting, and that, yes, that's old fashioned, but it certainly takes away the possibility of the things that we're concerned with tonight. So I just would like you to think of those things and be open to the possibility that we really need to be sure that what we're doing is what we should be doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Belsky?
Steve Mikowski, like, I've been attending these meetings since the late 80s. And for the umpteenth time, every 2 years, someone gets all fired up about a septic ordinance. And yet we have to find out how many people have gotten ill and have died for the lack of a septic ordinance. We'll have more on that later, but I gave each commissioner a copy of a document that I gave to the commissioners on December 7, 2020. I'll just read a couple excerpts. We're unaware that the electors of Leelanau County identify this issue as serious enough to lawfully petition the commission to act on it. And we know commissioners want to protect the environment, but the various documents were presented at that time. We need to keep in mind that all the animal, fowl, and aquatic kingdom creatures residing around us excrete fecal matter into the land, into our pristine waters. So we have to be careful how we identify things, because the word pristine maybe should not be used. But perhaps somebody or the commissioners have deemed that such excretions do not exist, or if so, unlike humans, animal, fowl, aquatic kingdom, fecal matter is harmless. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Yes.
My name is Jim Coberstead from Lake Leelanau. My main concern is the election integrity, like so many people have. And our elections, not only in the country, but especially at any level, our local level here. There's no boundary for it, regardless of what party you're with or how you feel. Election integrity or the lack thereof should be a pressing concern. It's one of my concerns, one of many individuals' concerns. And the fact that it does cross boundaries of different individuals, different beliefs, different parties. My concern is congruent with the concerns of many
Just stop
of these
using
people.
touchscreen computer voting because it's so vulnerable. We need to look at all the voting machines. Every Secretary of State needs to be, assisted in making sure that they are not being hacked. In 2018, electronic voting machines in Georgia and Texas deleted votes for certain candidates or switched votes from one candidate to another.
The biggest seller of voting machines is doing something that violates Cybersecurity 101, directing that you install remote access software, which would make a machine like that, a magnet for fraudsters and hackers.
I actually held a demonstration for my colleagues here at the Capitol, where we brought in folks who, before our eyes, hacked election machines. Understanding that some of the election system vendors have required states to sign agreements that prevent or inhibit independent security testing. There's a saying that I'm sure many of you have heard, which is the difference between being hacked and not being hacked is knowing you've been hacked. And they are still looking for ways to steal information about voter registration, for example. There are some tech experts in Silicon Valley with whom I have met who say that maybe what they'll do this next time is to really disrupt the actual election, shut down the servers that you send results to, interfere with the operation of voting machines because still too many of them are linked to the internet. So we are still very vulnerable. Voting machines themselves are not connected to the internet.
No voting machines are connected to the internet. The devices are not connected to the internet. They do not connect to the internet. Those things are not connected to the internet. The Department of Homeland Security says the 2020 election was the most secure in American history. The 2020 election was the most secure in U.S. history. First, there were no switched or deleted votes involving Dominion machines. Dominion is not and has never been a front for communists. The company also does not have any ties to China whatsoever, including investment or source code transfer. Let me be clear. Voting systems are, by design, meant to be used as closed systems that are not networked, meaning they are not connected to the internet. It sounds like some of these machines are showing the tabulators can and are connected to the internet. Throughout, you're going to, particularly where a vote is cast on election day, those machines they should not be connected to the internet. Certainly is a best practice. But some have the capability, don't they? Some may have modems that are typically disabled, but in certain states, I believe in Wisconsin, some are temporarily activated to transmit counts. But those tabulators are connected on election day because that's how they transmit the data to the counties and also into the unofficial. In some cases, yes, sir. Yeah. Sir.
There's much more. Just to give you a little background where I've come from. I used to work with digital electronic automation for a number of years, and all of our equipment to certify high precision measuring equipment that was responsible for final product and manufacturing plants, anywhere from John Doe's machine shop to Pratt Whitney, any aerospace, Boeing jet engines, rockets, Hubble Space Telescopes, that kind of thing. We were required every year for third-party certification on the equipment that we use. We were not allowed to do it ourselves. That was for security reasons. Every year we had to. Even when I was in business, I still had to send my stuff out to stay current with Guide 25, military spec standards, along with ISO. I had to send my equipment out to be certified. That's physical equipment and it's software. Time's up? Okay. I just hope that you can take the information that you've received from all of us, judge it wisely, and hopefully implement some changes.
Thank you. Public comment? Seeing none, any commissioner comment? Well, I have one. It's good to have you back, Deb. I'm sorry you had a flight delay last week. We missed you.
I thank you for that.
We're down now at communications, proclamations, and presentations, and I don't believe we.
Oh, just one, and it's a major proclamation in that it is Commissioner Robbins' birthday today. So not just this week, but today. So I just found out late this afternoon because he didn't share that news with me. They're olive cherry pie, but I was able to get a very delicious cinnamon walnut coffee cake that is big enough to share with other commissioners.
I'll hold that for you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Rush. That's awful nice of you. So
You also shared with.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
You also shared with my administrator, you're still 4 months old.
Yeah, yes. So happy birthday, Rick. Like I said, today's actual birthday.
Okay, we're now at our consent agenda, and I think when we approved the agenda, nobody wanted any of these off. So let me read the statement about the consent agenda. The purpose of the consent agenda is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one motion without discussion. Any commissioner may ask that any item on the consent agenda be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such request will be automatically respected. It will not be a second. So I'll ask again, is there anybody that would like to have an item removed? Do I have a motion? Commissioner Rushing?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support. Second. All those in support say aye.
Aye.
Motion approved 7-0. Now we are moving down to our action items. And the first item we'll deal with is the Area Agency on Aging of Northwest Michigan Implementation Plan Resolution. Yes.
I move to recommend or move that the Leelanau County Board of Commissioners approve County Resolution 202, 2022. And do we have
I'll assign the number.
a dash for that part?
I'll assign the number after.
We'll assign a number. Thank you. Fiscal year 2023 to 2025 multi-year implementation plan of the Area Agency on Aging of Northwest Michigan.
Second.
Any discussion? Would be a roll call vote.
Commissioner Allgaier,
Support.
Commissioner Bailey,
Yes.
Commissioner Lautner.
Yes.
Commissioner Robbins,
Yes.
Commissioner Rushton,
Yes.
Commissioner Sotis Little,
Yes.
Chairman Wessel,
Yes.
7-0.
Thank you. We are now at the item on our agenda that says acceptance of donation. Animal Welfare League of Benzie County. That's a late edition request number 1.
Good evening. First, I apologize, it's a late agenda item, but as you can see it, when I opened the mail last Tuesday morning, this unsolicited check was there, so we made the steps to get here as quick as we could. I don't really have a lot of information for it. Somehow they selected the sheriff's office, specifically the Animal Control Division, to make this generous donation. Obviously, funds of that nature are always useful, whether it be the care of animals or equipment that may help assist in the care of animals. So I would ask that the board allow us to accept this donation. And what we do is put it into a special account. I've already talked to the treasurer's office and the finance director, and we will figure that out and handle that like we have other accounts for the canine, the Marine Patrol. So,
Thank you. Ms. Rushing?
Yes, I would move that the Leelanau County Board of Commissioners approve the receipt of $5,000, a $5,000 donation from the Animal Welfare League of Benzie County for the Animal Control Division of the Sheriff's Department. Funds to be placed in an account determined by the finance or treasurer's office for use specific to the needs of the animal control deputy.
Support. Any discussion? All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion approved.
Thank
Very
you.
much. We now have a second late edition request on event tracker software purchase. Mr. Jack, do you have something?
Yeah, well, they're here and Under Sheriff Kiesel's gonna stay up the front here.
Okay.
Hi, folks. Jeffrey Fulton with Safety Net, Suttons Bay resident.
Leanna Wilson, IT technician.
Before you, we have a request to replace a piece of software that we got in 2020 to meet CJIS, Criminal Justice Information Services compliance. This piece of software handles threat detection, log collection, monitoring and alerting for IT, and it has a managed operations center. In 2021, the company was sold, and the company Qualis that had the product, that bought the product, discontinued it. We have other customers and banks that we have been working to remove it from. We worked a half a year to come up with a suitable replacement for it. That replacement is a product called Event Tracker. The issue here is we budgeted $10,500 per year in the 2020 budget. We haven't spent anything. We didn't spend anything in 2021 because we didn't have a good product. And the new product that we've got is $21,000. So this product is paramount for threat detection. It provides a 24/7 by 365 offshore SOC, Security Operations Center, that they monitor everything coming through. This is installed on every device and can actually shut a device off or turn its processes off should it see a threat. This is our recommendation through Safety Net. We're doing the same thing for our banks, Department of Homeland Security clients, and DoD clients. Questions?
Questions? Ms. Miller?
Well, kind of a concern. So this is going to cost us twice as much now.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any other vendors other than this vendor? Is it worth going out to bid for, or?
There are other vendors. The other vendors are much higher. This new vendor we have as a standard now with Safety Net, so we know how to support it with our other clients. And so we're recommending this as a standard going forward. This is also a problem right now. We're out of compliance. The county is out of compliance by not having a product in place. I wish there were a better, cheaper solution that didn't cost that, but
We're still using the,
Net Watcher?
Net Watcher?
No, ma'am. Has stopped
We have
functioning.
nothing working
That is correct.
right now.
It's maybe a quarter there, but there's no support for it.
And the other options were more expensive.
Yes, ma'am.
So a clarification if I may.
Absolutely.
Is this system specific to the criminal justice system, or is this a system that would be used not only in for law enforcement, but here in this building?
It is used all over. Your network is set up that the criminal justice system puts the compliance option, the needs down, but your entire network is in scope. And so therefore it's handling, the law enforcement center, it's handling everything in between. So it is on all devices because you don't have things separated, just the criminal justice system. It's not isolated, if that makes sense.
Yes, that's what I was wondering, if they have a separate system that they were working from when they do their background checks or whatever it is that they do.
This is our only way to do it, and it's all in the same network.
So what happens if this is breached?
The criminal justice system, the CJIS and the state of Michigan will cut us off from access to a lot of the services that they currently provide. This actually did happen when the hack occurred 2 or 3, 4 years ago. So they came in and said, you're not certified. You don't check out. You have to get everything fixed.
At that time, they came and did an audit to make sure we were in full compliance, because there was a brief time where they did, for safety reasons, and it made sense, I mean, when he was coming.
Yep.
That they withdrew their services or availability because.
And we've earned their trust back now.
Yeah, maybe Under Sheriff Kiesel can talk about this.
If there is a problem and there is a breach, obviously, like you said, they do shut it down. This is an umbrella system. I mean, we have multifaceted parts of this system. I mean, the jail cannot communicate for jail records, guys out on the road through dispatch. I mean, there's nothing we can access. And I can tell you, if we're not in compliance, it's not a fun couple weeks, I'll say, not even a couple days or a couple hours. We have several individual audits that are smaller than this for lien, the law enforcement information network, it all falls under this. So everything we do, everything dispatch does runs under this system. So we endorse it fully.
Commissioner Sunstein?
If I may, I got one more question in regards to that. What does our data processing fund look like financially?
You have to ask Darcy.
Darcy, can you speak to that?
I know I checked when Jeff first brought this up to me, we checked on it, and we think we'll be okay. If we need extra funds, we'll ask for a budget transfer.
Okay.
We have not spent all our resources for this year. Obviously, it's July.
It seems like we're pulling a lot out of that fund lately, and that's why I asked the question.
Most of it has been budgeted though.
Yes.
My questions were going back to the Net Watcher software. So it was installed in 2020. When did it basically quit functioning except for minimally?
2021, we called for service when things were going a little sideways with it. And at that time, we found out that the transfer was made and they fired all the engineers that supported that product. Effectively, they were trying to get all the people that bought that to buy into their product, which is about 4 times as much with Qualys.
I see the cost is $875 per month.
Correct.
Were we continuing to pay that?
No, you stopped at the end of 2020.
Okay, correct.
So you had a year where you didn't pay for anything. We kept trying to figure out what we were going to do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
BNA support this as well?
Yes, I do. I know I haven't said much, but yes, I'm on board with this too.
Okay.
And I have to give Jeff credit. As soon as he found out we had an issue, he brought it to our attention. And I asked him to research any and all options to get this resolved as quickly as possible. Because if it is shut down, and we have not been shut down,
No.
It's critical to know that's functioning that we do not want to take that chance. So I asked Jeff to do as much research and come back as quickly as possible. And that's why it's a late edition. That's why we're not waiting till August.
So I was gonna make a motion, but does someone else have something?
Commissioner Lautner had her hand up.
Yes, thank you. So you said, was it NetWatcher that was pushing Qualis? Is that what you said?
So Qualis
Qualis.
is the company that purchased the product NetWatcher. And then they proceeded to fire all the engineering staff and cancel the product.
In charge 4 times as much.
Qualis had their own product
Yes.
and they wanted to charge more. They wanted to basically pull a base of company or, of users in to take advantage of that.
And how much would that have been for that product?
We were looking at, it was probably going to be in the neighborhood of 60,000 per
As
year.
opposed to 21.
Yes, ma'am.
So that 4 times or 3 times as much.
More than the NetWatcher, but
More than NetWatcher, yeah.
correct.
Exactly. So what else, what other products are out there and how much more would they have been? Like you're just saying there are more, but.
We were looking at other products. I don't have a list with me right offhand. Our engineering and security teams were the ones that went through and did the research on this. They were from anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 more.
All right. I guess my frustration tonight here is that we have no choice. We obviously have to have a system. It's extremely important for the safety of everybody. But this is what we have in front of us. Like, it would have been really nice to have had this several months ago if we were looking at this. That is
Well, I think Jeff was researching and he just told us this is a good solution just recently. That's why-
Yeah, we had been working on it and I had been talking to Ron prior and Chet and
Our final
Leanna.
solution.
well, I absolutely appreciate that, but and we do trust you, obviously, we're going to move forward, but yet we are not doing our own research. We're taking your recommendations, not based on what you do for us, which is a good thing. And the fact that we need this.
I agree. I alerted Ron and the team when they were aware of it. So
Well, the reality is this is why we have a partner.
sorry, didn't make it up.
Ron would not have been able, nor would Manna be able to do the research, and this is not their field of expertise. This is why we have a contract with Excellent.
Right, and I
Independent company to keep us,
would say too,
in compliance.
I mean, the system is complicated. I mean, like I said, there's multiple levels. It's beyond the scope of anybody we have in our office. We have faith. I mean, it was Ron, now it's Leanna and it's Safety Net, and it has to work without fail. If it doesn't, we have issues. And there has been 0 issues since Safety Net has really they've been part of the program for a long time, but they're really front and center now. There's been 0 issues since they took that over. So.
Commissioner Rushton and then Commissioner Lautner.
My question to you is, if we should happen to approve this request tonight, what's the process going forward? How soon will that system be in place?
So we actually, one of the parts I said or didn't bring up was we had a pilot running here on about 20 machines. So Ron requested a pilot months ago. That pilot's been running. We estimate within a month and a half, we'll complete the rollout. It's because we've configured everything for the pilot. Now we can push it forward. I can try for sooner, but
I'm glad you mentioned that, but I think it would have been helpful for the board to know at the beginning of this discussion that the item that you're recommending is in use. And
sorry,
we've seen some positive results from this.
we have, it's actually stopped and we've gotten alerts on your web server. We found that your web server that was in place was actually getting hit from Czechoslovakia.
I do believe you mentioned.
And that wouldn't have, that came from the trial. Sorry, I didn't mean, I was trying to keep it brief.
Sometimes it's better not to be.
Well, he said you wanted me to continue, just go on for hours, so I was trying
Well, I
to
can
be.
say this, I know it's a little, it's way over my head. So I trust that you're the expert that you say you are, in listening to our fellow employees and partners. So we're just gonna have to trust that what you're telling us
Yes, ma'am.
is what we need. And if we find out that you've broken that trust, you know what happened.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do I have to move out of Suttons Bay if I do?
There you go.
Okay.
Commissioner O'Gara, and then Commissioner Bailey, and then Commissioner.
I move that the Board of Commissioners waive its policy on bid requirements and approve the implementation and purchase of the event tracker product, service, in amount not to exceed 21,000 annually. Funds to come from data processing fund 636.
Any discussion?
So does this product have a long track record going back, and is it going to be around for a while and not disappear in 2 years?
In the technology world, I wish it were a long lead on things, and that we know how long that they're going to be out there. The threat landscape changes constantly, and we look for tools that are going to thwart it. It is a game of IT whack-a-mole. The hackers do things, we react. I cannot guarantee that, but this one has got, it's got about 6 years under, and it's a lot more supported. Can something happen? Can somebody else purchase them? I couldn't tell you. I wish I could guarantee it.
I just have a question and then a comment. The question is, as Diana knows, because we shared with her, we've seen occasionally when you try to log in from a computer that isn't Project, a request that, do you want this free service or do you want to pay for it? Which is this a hacked thing or is this something?
Oh, you're talking about the Wi-Fi login? That was I've changed that actually. That was because we switched to a new maintenance vendor for our Wi-Fi access points. It was the splash page was changed. And I didn't know that, so I've gone in and reset that.
So it was something that was genuine.
It wasn't hacked, no.
That's why I was curious. The other is, I think kind of what you're hearing here a little bit is, I realize it's a high-tech field, but when you find a problem like this, and you've known about it for quite some time, it would be very helpful for this board to know. Not necessarily giving specific details, but that there is a situation and that you're trying to address it, trying to have solutions. That would be just more comfortable.
Duly noted.
Thank you for everything that you have presented tonight. I appreciate it.
Any other questions? I would just say that you can come and report to us regularly, but we may not understand any of it.
I'll bring a translator.
We have a motion and a second. All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion is approved 7-0. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We're now at the late edition item brought forward by Commissioner Lautner on the drainage district. I think that Steve is here.
And Mr. Sensi, I believe, is our legal counsel.
And you want to kick it off?
Commissioner Law, would you like to, or would you like me to say?
Go ahead.
Okay, a concern was brought by Commissioner Lauter to my attention last week about the fees associated with the drainage district. And I realize that I believe this is the first one that you have done in your years of service here as drain commissioners. I know it's a very complex process. I think the concern is that I believe you and Mr. Sensi met with the township supervisor last week.
Yes.
And at that point, he was notified, I believe, for the first time that there'd be substantial fee associated with that, that would be assessed to the township. Also, at that time, we were notified that there also would be pretty substantial fee assessed to the county. Those fees can be paid over 20 years period. And part of the fees that associated with the county can be bypassed to the road commission. I think the concern that Commissioner Lauter had and some other county officials in township, that we were under the impression, correctly or incorrectly, that there'd be, the fees would be covered by the people associated in the district, by those property owners. But the fees are, I understand for the county could be up to $100,000 or more, and for the township, it's $100,000 or more also. I think that amount was quite a surprise to the township officials as well to the county officials. I don't think at any point here did we ever talk about fees. I know the notice of assessment will be going out, or maybe did go out.
Went out.
And there's a hearing the 28th of July, I believe. And so Commissioner Lauter, I got a legal opinion on the process, and we certainly understand that as a drain commissioner, you have the authority to set up these fees. You follow the legal process. You've had legal assistance and you've had Mr. Sensi with you. But I think the surprise was the amount of fees that will be associated to local units of government, including the township and the county. I don't think at any point, and maybe you didn't know that, but at any point, did you mention that be $100,000 assessment to the township and to the county? I think that's the issue why you've asked for the late addition. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's it.
Just trying to summarize the whole discussion.
So sitting where we are, this is a real concern for me, because we go back to what we hired, the engineer you recommended, Steve. As a matter of fact, just this week, I took a phone call from someone who said that you guys waive your bid process way too often. We did with the presenter before you. So I asked the questions I asked. We just waived our bid process again. And at the time, I had questioned, you know, I did not know Mr. Sensi, nothing personal, but this is the engineer you had because he said he was the expert on this. So if I remember correctly, I apologize if I'm wrong, but I believe we waived our bid process then so that you could have Mr. Sensi, or maybe you were more, I don't remember exactly. But at any rate, here we are. We asked several times throughout this process, who would be paying for this? And it started with the Schaumburg drain mostly. And we were told repeatedly that that's who was going to pay for it. Never once did you say the township would have to pay. Never once did you say the county was going to have to pay for these. So now here we sit with some pretty big bills, especially for my township. It does not have any extra money. It did not budget any extra money. My second concern is sitting here and why we've asked all these questions all these years repeatedly when the bills came through. You know, a lot of bills here for the engineer on these projects. And I asked both over the years, both Jen and Darcy repeatedly, who's going to pay for these? Yep, the districts. That was their understanding. Everybody's understanding. 2 years ago, when you told the Solon supervisor that this project was still coming down, he said he did not want the township to have to pay a dime for this, that it was all supposed to have been paid for by those homeowners. Was never told anything different. My greater concern now is county. So I represent two townships, and I'd like to understand how this is 100,000 or more for one of these districts, and are you working on 3?
There are 4 districts.
4 districts you're working on. So some could be more expensive, any less expensive. So this could potentially cost the county, what, $500,000? That's their statement? And how is that going to benefit anybody down in my other township? I don't understand how this is going to benefit all of the citizens in the county. And why we weren't told.
If you'd like, I can address the county benefit. The county benefit is for the benefit of roads. It benefits whoever uses the roads in the county, whether they live here or not. That's just the way
This is a private road.
Well, evidently there is a county road in the district. Sometimes, unfortunately not here, there's a state highway in the district and you can do an assessment against the state. And that's helpful for the property owners and for the county and the township, but that's not the case here. But in any district where there's a county road, within the district, the county will receive a benefit based on the benefit of the road. The township receives a benefit based on public health. That's just the way the code is set up. I'm happy to.
First of all, I'd like to address the surprise. I apologize for any lack of clarity that I may have had moving forward through all of this. Initially, it was my understanding that bills would go to the County Road Commission and the township and the people involved. We've referred to at many points in time at-large entities. The at-large entities are the townships, the villages, the county, MDOT, and the people involved in the district. Those are the people that end up paying from the district. So when we say the district, that is what we mean by the district. And again, I apologize for any lack of clarity to this group or to the township group. You know, when we serviced after the Board of Determination and, you know, handed out service, that in and of itself was to let the township know and let the clerk know that this is going to be part of payment. You are part of the district, you are an at-large entity.
First, we're learning on it.
And so, you know, that in and of itself, me handing that to Jim Lautner at the township level was a service and saying, okay, you're part of this. And if it was, if I had lack of clarity at that point, I sincerely apologize for it. It was my feeling that this was being understood and gathered in by the people involved. So at any rate,
this isn't the first time that either the county or the township knew that they'd be receiving an at-large assessment. I mean, Steve and I have been here to give updates on the project. I think you've actually asked the question before, and Steve found it from December where you asked me, is the county paying anything? And I explained that the county would be paying a percentage of this.
We understand.
And that the road commission through a formula pays half of that percent. And I indicated that in December. Steve actually went back and looked at it. You asked the question about it and I responded and said, yes, the county would be getting an assessment. And when it deals with the apportionment, that's what you're dealing with. It's not that Doug can back it up, but everything in the drain code talks about apportionments. It doesn't talk about the fees or costs. It deals with the percents associated with things.
Commissioner Algar has a question.
Just to clarify, so all of these fees are over 20 years.
Yes.
It's not a lump sum.
Not a lump sum, no.
Yeah, you can, excuse me, any entity, anybody, any property owner, anyone can pay it all upfront. Or, but if you want to finance it, you can also do that. Or you can pay part.
But we've held scope meetings in all the districts and even at the Board of Determination.
Almost
all of them. We talk about the fact that these are the at-larges, which we've always said to the county. And I supplied today, Chet, with some information of the last 30 projects I did. So you can understand that this is not abnormal at all or anything like that. If anything, that the township and the county are on the lower end of the typical percentages that most drain commissioners assess for those on these projects. They're actually on the lower end. The at-larges tend to be closer to 40%, and here they're closer to 30%.
Each of you received this just a few minutes before the meeting today. It's on your desk. And I'm sure you have not had a chance to look at it. I believe this is what you're referring to.
Yeah, yep. Those are the last 5.5 years of there's 30 projects on there in 7 counties.
Yes, thank you. I can't speak for the other commissioners, but I can say that I fully understood. You were, in my mind, very clear. Now, in full transparency, I am part of a drainage district in Schaumburg. So perhaps it was incentive to pay close attention, but you have been here and you have said, you've explained what the at-large is. And so for me, at least, I didn't have a question.
I knew that you were saying the county would be involved, township would be involved. Thank you for the clarity.
Yeah, I think I explained the fact of when the question was asked by Commissioner Lautner this winter was the fact that there's a formula set up for which the County Road Commission pays out of their Act 51 gas tax monies towards half of the overall assessment to the county. And I was explaining that portion. And I said typically the county's percentages are smaller. So they're a 10, 12%. So half that, they might be 5%, 6%, 7%. And I think I explained that.
You did.
And I mean.
Commissioner Glover?
Yeah, no, I see not clearly. Maybe there had been more meetings Patricia attended, whatever, but just repeatedly as these bills came through. See, you said that we were keeping track of those and those would be refunded by those districts. And yeah.
Yeah, the districts
appreciate-
included the at-larges and the
Yeah.
at-large entities that I referred to, the county and the township, MDOT, villages.
We had a question come up at Finance Committee about the possibility of creating an assessment district and passing more of this cost on to the homeowners in that district. Is that a possibility?
Well,
There's very few homes, 15 homes, something like that.
There's only a total of 24 properties in this particular district, which is the smallest number of properties of a large amount of the other districts. That's what this is. There's the notice that went out has the district boundary, which is basically the special assessment district as well. It's also basically the watershed for this is the area of land that when it rains, it gets into the drain. So the drain services those areas. Therefore, those areas are benefited by the construction of the drain. So there is a special assessment district that's paying the other 70%. Those properties are paying the other 70% of the cost.
My question is, do we have an option of passing the cost through some sort of special?
Let me make a stab at this before you, if I could. This is a special assessment district. It allows me to go out and garner the best interest rate I can for a 20-year note, and then stretch the payment out over 20 years. All of the special assessment district strategies like Chet's gone through with his group are a little bit different from that. This allows an entity to go out for that type of money and stretch out payments for a fix of a very expensive thing. This road system came apart and there's not a huge number of properties here. They don't have a whole lot of options. But anyway, I cut you off.
Are you saying past the counties?
I think he's asking, sometimes there's instances for public improvements like a sewer or something where you're able to create a special assessment district. That's a different process than what's set up under chapter 4 of the Drain Code, which is what this is, chapters 3 and 4. This is the ultimate special assessment. They're getting an assessment directly for the benefit derived. The township and the county, direct answer to your question is no. However, just for the point of clarity, the assessment goes to the county. The county is able to pass along half of that to the road commission to pay out of their Act 51 money. Or some counties just pay the whole thing, but that's something we don't get involved with. That's your decision, whatever you wish to do. But if you'd like further clarity on that, I'm happy to try to help. But
So
not
back
in
to my
this
original question, this is a private road that benefits 24 homeowners. It's not a county road.
Vouch Road is included in the district.
So
You're in the county road, but the county road was not in danger of being washed out or anything.
right,
It doesn't have to do with anything with being in danger of being washed out.
And how, so the benefit.
It doesn't have anything to
to-
do with if a property is high and dry and not flooded.
What is the benefit? Help me with the benefit to the entire township for these 20.
About an acre of Vouch Road drains water into what is now the county drain system.
let me see if I can, if you had a state highway, say it was it's a state, right, cutting right through the middle, you're not touching the county, but that county does, every happy little raindrop that falls onto that road goes somewhere, and it goes, in this instance, it goes through the system and out the outlet. That's the benefit that, that the county receives. So it's really, how is the best way to look at it? Maybe just a way of figuring out how do we, it's a utility. How do we deal with the stormwater and who's getting a benefit from it? Obviously the property owners are, so the road has runoff. It just does. And that's when you'll get an assessment for that based on a calculation of road runoff. It's a calculation that I honestly don't understand. It is laid out in the administrative code for the state of Michigan. It's complicated, but you'll get that's part of the assessment for road benefit. So that's the benefit they get.
In the
That's
notice.
the system. That's the way the law is set up.
I guess I'm not understanding the benefits, no problem presently.
In the notice, we included some
it's
frequently asked questions, and one of the things says, questions is, why am I being assessed if I have no drainage issues or no flooding on my property? That is pretty typical in most drain districts in the state. The majority of people do not have problems because they are higher or their water runs off onto other properties. The drain code is set up so that the 4 or 5 properties in 100 parcel district have just as many that are affected and do need relief, have just as many rights as the other 95 that have no problem. And a project would proceed forward through a board of determination if those 4 or 5 people show up and testify that they have flooding and have drainage issues. Even if the other 95 show up and say, we don't want it, I have no issues. It's the majority of drainage issues are not, it's not by majority of lands in a district. Usually you're dealing with a smaller number of parcels that do have problems or do have an issue. And so just because someone is up higher and their water runs off onto other property, that means if we have to deal with 100 gallons of water that's down at the very bottom of the drain for into the county drain system, we look at, are you 1%, 2% of that 100 gallons? You run off water, you contribute something to it. So just because people don't have a problem certainly doesn't mean that they're not receiving a benefit. Their water is being taken by their neighbors and eventually into the drain system, and that's why they receive an assessment and receive a benefit.
What the county is due when?
It will go on the, I mean, it goes on the winter tax bills for the properties in the at-larges.
That doesn't answer my question. So we don't send ourselves a tax bill. So when is the county's?
And what's the process for the?
So
county?
we've got to make our bond payment.
Typically
It'll be,
June
you know,
1st.
we'll need it around the
Next
same
year.
time your property taxes are due, but you're not getting you're not getting a property tax bill to the county, but the payments are due every year in the winter before, say, February 14th, something like that.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that date.
February 14th, but it's going to be dependent on the borrowing and when the date is due. It will be by early next year.
Typically
Your
the
first
bond,
payment, if you want to pay over 20 years. If you want to pay upfront, we would hope that you would advise us of that before we do the borrowing, so we don't borrow too much money because that's illegal.
So this is news. SP Jackson, thank you. You're taking notes. We're going to have to budget for this. This is the first we've heard we're going to have to budget for it. So sorry, the budget process goes.
and just to explain, it is a hard thing to be able to budget for townships or counties with these drains because you don't know the cost until the end of the project. We had the bid opening on Friday. We've all done since Friday's work to see what we can do to get the cost down overall. So it's a very fluid process in that effect, but it's not like at the beginning, we know that this is going to cost $500,000 and therefore the township or the county can budget accordingly because of that. So it is a difficult process. Now, once the assessments are levied, obviously if it's a yearly thing, they can budget for that. But the purpose for meeting with the township supervisor was just to give them an idea before the day review of what They would be what we were considering in developing the assessment role at the time.
You know what? It would be helpful to me if you just briefly just told us again why the residents need this. I know you said that before, but there were at Lake Bluff, the residential neighborhood was having severe drainage problems, but what was it doing?
The water was taking the soil and running it everywhere. The ruts across the road were 6, 8, 10, 12 inches deep. The ability to get up and down the road was hampered. Some danger of rescue vehicles not being able to transverse it after a huge rain. They've poured lots of money into adding gravel and spreading it and trying to work with a system that was placed, basically a gravel road up through the hills with some ditch lines. And while the ditch lines held and the check dams were cleared out, it kind of held together. Through the dry years, the neighborhood worked its way and took care of it to a certain degree. It was a problem, but they were working and doing it, walking around and begging money to do the next little Band-Aid fix. We hit the wet years and it totally blew up. So a resident quizzed me on, what is a drainage district? Is this a possibility? And at that time, I just hired Brian and said, okay, that is a possibility, but you need to make an application. Do that process, verify the application signatures, then come back. The next thing is the petition. So that person ran around and got the petition going too. Once I have a petition, I'm on the hook. I have to go to Board of Determination and see if there's a need or not.
And they determine that.
If the
So
Board
that's
of Determination determines need, then there's a project that I have to proceed with.
And so none of us like big assessments.
This is the hardest
I'm
part.
in a drainage system No, too. And of the four
The
districts, this is the
typical
worst one.
thing about people living together in community. Sometimes we all have to pull together so the community works. If we all lived on 100 acres, we wouldn't have this problem. But since we choose to live together, this is called being in community. It's a tough one.
And maybe, as I say, being in a drainage district, I can talk a little bit better about the benefit to the county. The biggest benefit for the county is into the townships, is having a drainage system that works. I mean, in Schaumburg, all this water is coming from all over the place. It's flooding out certain people's homes that had no reason to have that house flooded. They built in a safe way, and there's nothing wrong with what they did. It's just that the water goes somewhere, and it just happens to go into their homes, into their basements, into their fields. So there isn't an adequate drainage system to handle that, so you're building one. You are doing some things so that the water flows and that this situation is alleviated. So there won't be silt on the road, there won't be flooding in people's homes that don't deserve to have their homes flooded as well as. But it's a benefit to the community, as Commissioner Algar says, but it's a benefit to county because it fixes the problem and improves the county's drainage system in the townships. So to me, that's the benefit I see being charged, even though I'm high and dry. My neighbors way down on M22, when I'm nowhere near there, are not, because of everyone's water running down that way. And it's just a problem that developed over time as more people built and more clearing occurred, whatever, over time created a problem. So that's what you're doing, is you're fixing and you're benefiting the county by addressing the problem and taking care of it.
And it's important to look at these drains like a utility. That's, the sheet that we supplied, you'll see some of the counties that are very small population like Allegan, they have 900 county drains, and it is a utility. It's just like water or sewer, and they treat it just the same way, and they're necessary infrastructure to be able to live in certain communities, be able to build in certain areas. But as far as the assessing goes, this is by far the worst of the districts. You know, it just happens that it's the first one that's coming through this process. The other ones are much easier doing the assessments and deciding the apportionments and dividing things up. This is a very small district, which are inevitably difficult to do with assessing. And there's only 24 properties. So it's the worst of the ones by far.
Thank you. I believe I heard you say that this is the first of 4 districts that you're working on. Is that correct?
Correct.
What's the timeline for the other 3 districts?
There's a possibility in my mind to have one more come through next year. The other 2 are, in my mind, quite possibly the following year.
So 1 in 2023, 2 in 2024.
Right.
Okay. The reason for my question is, although you did mention that you thought that this particular one that we're looking at today might be the most expensive, time will tell.
Well, it's the most difficult to be able to apportion because
Okay,
it's so
but
small.
time will tell. The reason I asked the question is because this board now at least has, we're looking at the front windshield and not the rear windshield for budget. And unfortunately, I was under the same assumption that these dollars would be allocated to the property owners. So I'm really a little disappointed in your presentation to this board and not really clarifying what we were actually looking at. You may have mentioned appropriations. Now, I understood that we had preliminary costs, and those preliminary costs may in fact be would be our cost, as opposed to what you're telling us now. So there's been confusion all the way around.
I mean, I was asked directly and I said the county would be paying a portion of the cost.
Correct.
By
My
Commissioner
understanding
Loudon
was
in
it
December.
would have been the cost that we were putting money into this project before you even had the assessment. So I thought that was our share of the cost.
All the costs at the end, so the money that you put in would be the same as if that money wasn't there, Steve could just go to a bank and get the money. It all comes at the end and then gets assessed
I get
out
that now.
completely now.
I get that now. But just so this board knows and future boards know that we may have another $100,000 for each one of these other districts, and God knows how many more we're going to create.
And it's not Steve that creates them, or like I said, landowners came, and every landowner in the state has the ability to make an application and make a petition, and
He's got a
it's
job to do.
not him to determine whether it goes forward or not. These are not, some of these, we maybe hope that they don't move forward because they're difficult problem to try and solve or deal with, but a 3-person board of determination, that's not Steve determines whether it goes forward or not.
We don't like the news, but we thank you for listening to us. Are there other questions, Commissioner Lutton?
One other comment, thank you for that, Deborah, because I also called Commissioner Bonnet and without telling him what was going on, asked him. And he said the very same thing. We were told that the county was paying all these costs up front, but that we would be reimbursed. That was our understanding. So every time we questioned it, I look at the bills every month, go through bills. I'm alarmed by the number of bills coming through. I questioned them. Yep, we're setting those aside. Those will be reimbursed.
They all will be.
As soon as the money is borrowed, all of those bills, all that money comes back to the county. On the flip side, that you didn't understand, that I probably didn't make clear enough, is there will be an assessment to the
Not
county.
very clear, and that's why I may be allowed to continue with my statement. I understand you said you misspoke. and I appreciate that. Now we know, now we look forward to budgeting for this, and as you look around and see these houses going up on hilltops, and that's creating big problems. Anybody can see them in their area. I do know some, I know Leelanau Township is just as surprised now that they are going to have to pay a portion of this. So apparently there was more clarity, and I know some planning commissions now are looking at trying, perhaps not allowing PUDs and other things on top of any hillside if this is going to be the case. So I'm glad that there's an understanding of that now.
Could I just address that? That is a common problem all over the state. The townships allowing developers to develop where maybe they shouldn't, or not putting the appropriate infrastructure. We are doing our
It's
level
okay,
best
the
as
homeowners
a,
are gonna pay for it all, and that's what our.
Yeah, I know.
So we've heard all along,
Yep.
we understood the value, but if the
Yep.
homeowners are paying for it, that's a
But-
whole lot different.
yeah. What I'm trying to say to you is, but to the extent we can get the word out to the townships to pay review, make sure you're not allowing building where in a bowl, or if you are, that there's some outlet or some structure, because it's, I had a drain project in the middle of a part of the state where the remedy was to tear 13 homes down. It was just like, that was it, but a much bigger district, but thousands of homes, so it could be afforded, but it's, we are trying to get the word out, to the townships, not to the county, to the townships. Take a long look at what developers are submitting. Is it gonna work? Because they'll build on every inch of property if you want. So.
Thank you very much. And Steve, you were brave to come tonight. Thank you for coming this evening and giving us this great.
Thank you.
More comments, Steve, if you could set a meeting up with John Gallagher, the treasurer, talk about the technical process, because I think John, I have him on the phone with Mr. Caron, our legal counsel, and there's a process to collect the money and so forth. And I don't think, John, you have been part of this dialogue, and you'd like to be proactive, so we don't have any issues down the road with actual collection and payment of bills and how it's correctly audited in future years. So if you can work with John on that.
Will do.
We appreciate that.
If I may ask, I don't think that it was addressed on how these funds would be collected. And if that's something we're going to be responsible for, is it something the townships are going to be responsible for? Who collects these funds and how does it get accounted for?
The funds to reimburse what the county has been paying thus far, or the assessment funds?
Assessment.
They have to go they go on the tax bill to the townships. So they have to go, I think it's the last Wednesday in September, they have to be to the townships to put on for sending out of the taxes. And it will show up as a line item, like below fire millage tax, it'll say drain special assessment.
So this is
And then
actually
back-
for our clerk.
No,
I apologize.
What?
goes to the township,
Township.
not
Treasurer, okay.
Not the county clerk.
Yeah.
township clerk.
So it lands in our treasurer's department then. I apologize in advance.
I think it's a township treasurer that really bears. most
Yes,
of
it is.
I'll send my condolences.
And I assume that at our next meeting, we'll want to talk about whether we assign some of the costs to the road commission. So we don't surprise them.
When will we get our assessment bonus?
It got mailed out yesterday, but I can send you I have a copy of what went out, or I can send that to
Email
you.
us to the house?
Yeah, I can email it to you tonight.
Just so we know exactly what it is. That'd be helpful for our next meeting.
On the notices, we have to include the estimate, the actual, what we tell people is the actual assessment. It will be presented on the day of review, which is on the 28th, but I believe we had 11%, 11.5% for the county. That's what went out as the estimate.
And as I understand, there is an appeal process, not on whether we assess or not, it's a percentage assigned. And that is 10 days after the hearing, which is July 28th.
Yep, there's an appeal process.
They wish to appeal, they have to appeal to probate court.
Yep, and the judge will assign 3 people to sit on a board, and they determine, they don't take any dollars away. They just move pieces of the percentages around if they feel that there's been, that Steve has unequally assessed a particular property or an at-large entity.
For it to be a manifest injustice for them to move the money around.
Supposed to
The
be
bottom
like-
line will stay the same.
So it's critical that you work with Mr. Gallagher to make sure that we're compliance and handling properly, make sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is overview of discussion on the audit review. Melinda, the chair of the finance committee, prepared to share, I think, just a kind of an overall summary of our finance committee.
I do want to get out the minutes, to go to those minutes, so I'll do the best I can if that, if you'll kind of help me through. We did have Steve zoomed in, and John and the auditor, the finance committee did need to discuss the findings. It's very interesting. This is a bank account that's been in place since 72 and 75. And normally the number is very low. Last year there was a bond for 150,000, which is apparently very unusual for this account. So while we handled it like we usually do, the auditors saw this for the first time, I guess, and were very concerned about that and had to have an answer for it. So for that reason, we had this material finding. In a way, I guess we could look at it as a good thing, because in investigating it, John discovered that the account has a tax ID number for Grand Traverse County. And this account for our auditor should have a tax ID number for Leelanau County. So since 75, it's had a tax ID number for Grand Traverse County. So as John said, he thought perhaps it was going through Grand Traverse County, or they would be auditing it in Grand Traverse County. And the number has been a low threshold number, because they under 4,000, so it didn't trigger an alarm for him if we were off by that, in his mind, little amount of money. In my mind, that's a lot of money. But there was that. That's a nutshell. Is there anything else we want to add? Is that what we have for this minute?
You clearly heard, I commend the treasurer and Jen Zawicki and Darcy for the discussion in the finance committee. I think Mr. Peacock was helpful when asked the question of Mr. Peacock, are you confident that this is going to be corrected for next year? He said, absolutely. And I thought it was a good meeting. I think we understood what happened, and there was some good news with it too. Finances are in really good shape. The audit was really good shape, and you went through all the good news.
Yeah, well, it's a issue. I think we addressed it very professionally yesterday. When I get done, John, I thought it'd be helpful if you would pass out to all the commissioners, would you pass out at the audit committee meeting, because 4 of you were not there. So I think you should have that. But if you look overall, the two material findings, one was on the bond financing, and if even Mr. Peacock said that's a very complicated process, and it's common that errors occur. 2, on this other one, we did find out it was open in 1975. It's a 3-county court district, and we did find out it is. The account number was listed to Grand Traverse County, but both Mr. Peacock and Mr. Gallagher said they're confident this was a one-time occurrence, so we taken care of. I think it's important to remember that no money was missing. Every penny was accounted for. Some of the good news that we should celebrate is that our MERS payments are some of the best in the state of Michigan. That was reported, and we were confident on that. I believe we were at 91%, which we are in the top quartile in the state. And overall, our finances are in good shape, and we added to our fund balance last year.
Yeah, and Steve, I did write down, he said this was no great fault of the county's on this. It was just an, forget what the word he said, but that's also a good thing. So, yeah.
Before we go to Deb, Commissioner Robbins was a member of the Finance Committee, and do you want to?
Yeah, I'd like to add, I mean, the first when this came out, that I didn't know what to think, but after yesterday's meeting, I feel confident it's not gonna happen again. From my end, it was not gonna point fingers at anybody, it's just lack of communication maybe. I think we all work together in the future. I don't think we're gonna see this again. I think we ought to concentrate on, like Chairman Wessel said, we got a retirement system, I think it's 95%, I think, if I remember right, and we put money in the budget or into our account, and we are in good shape. And I think sometimes we drift off and we look more at the negative things, when we got a whole bunch of positive things out of this that we should be sharing with the taxpayers and everybody. We got a great crew here, we got great employees, and we're all starting to work together, and I see a great future.
Yes, one thing I wanted to point out and verbalize today was during last week's meeting, when Mr. Peacock was presenting, he made the statement that this particular account was not in the general ledger. At the finance meeting, he rescinded that statement. So even though our minutes of last week reflect that statement, I wanted the general public to know that he had rescinded that statement. That account was in our general ledger. Number two, and it's more of a question for John. If this bank account has got a tax ID number for Grand Traverse County, does that account have to be closed and a new account opened?
I'm working on that right now.
Okay. And my other question in regards to the account, who puts money in that account? Is it the court system?
Court has control over the revenues.
Okay.
I physically have my office take it in.
So when the courts have custody of the revenues, does that mean the money can come from Grand Traverse County and or Leelanau County?
I can't answer that.
Okay, I was curious about that, and maybe that's the reason the tax ID number is in a Grand Traverse County account, because both entities, because we're.
That money is just coming from Leelanau counties. It's used to be back in the 70s, everything was run through Grand Traverse, but that money that's going into that account now is strictly from upstairs to our 86 district.
Okay, thank
They
you for.
retain their own bond and lists and everything to balances.
Thank you for that clarification. That was my concern. So technically speaking, that needs to be rectified, whether we close the account, opening it. So, and would you report that to us and we would take care of that? Thank you.
Yes, I did listen to the Finance Committee report, meeting, excuse me, minute. The audio on the Finance Committee meeting, I'll get it right, this afternoon. And it was clear on the bond issue that Mr. Peacock was urging the Treasurer's Office to reach out in advance because it's complicated. And I think I was very pleased to hear our Treasurer say that indeed he plans to do that in the future and accept the assistance on an issue that's complicated. So it shouldn't happen ever again, which is comforting. The other issue in terms of the account, I think it wasn't so much that it wasn't in the general ledgers. It was that the amounts were small that had been deposited by the court before, but it didn't raise any red flags. But when they saw a deposit of $150,000 in there that wasn't picked up or rectified, that is what flagged their concern. So I think our treasurer is aware of this and is taking care of adjusting the account to be ours, reflected as such, and will certainly be following and rectifying monies that are in there in the future.
I would suggest that everybody read Mr. Peacock's memo that he gave the finance committee and also the memo prepared by the treasurer. That adds quite a bit of information to what was presented last week. We do need a motion to accept the audit. Commissioner Rutner?
I would move that the Board of Commissioners accept the 2021 year-end financial statements and audit.
Second. Any discussion? All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All the same. Motion passes 7-0. And thank you to staff that completed that audit and did it well. We now are at the administrators section, vehicle equipment.
And I believe it's Laurel here. I thought she was, but it was passed out. I'll do my best to handle it because this is a passion for her. Selling and getting out action items. And I passed it out and I have to find my copy here and I apologize. I thought.
That's from 11A.
Yeah, okay, here it is, 11A. Here it is. So you have a summary there in the back. But as you know, we go out to bids for our vehicles. This time, in addition to the vehicles, we had some trailers and some kayaks. So if you look on the flip side, there's a specific list that lists the amount of the 3 vehicles, the amount for the trailer, the amount for the kayak trailer, and we were going to sell 3 of the 11 kayaks. I don't know if you want me to go over all of them, but you say, but you can see we did meet our bid minimum on every piece of equipment sold. And so for the 3 kayaks, they'll be sold. The other ones, we'll sell them individually and go out for bids on those also to sell the remaining 8 kayaks.
A motion?
The motion's on the back side.
If you flip it over, it has all the details.
Yes. Okay.
I move that the County Board of Commissioners approve the sale of the following retired Ford Police Interceptors covering 6x10 trailer, some of the family court kayaks, and the retired family court kayak trailer as listed.
I don't think they can read them all out.
Thank you. That's what my pause was.
Is there a second to that? Any discussion? All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passes 7-0. We now have Matthews.
Chairman, I just want to make sure on that motion that was made and seconded, that will include at the bottom that all winning bidders. I just don't want to put it in if that's not your understanding. But that's important.
So they'll pay the 5% premium.
And that's fine to include that. Okay.
Commissioner Lutner?
Yes. I would move that the Board of Commissioners approve the 2022-2023 Michigan Association of Counties, the MAC dues in the amount of $10,930.26.
Second. I would amend that motion to 12,009. The reason being that we have paid that amount for many, many years. Costs have gone up. I believe it's at least 10 years. And the amount they asked for is 19,000. So we're not being untoward in giving them a small increase.
Seeing no second. The amendment. Any discussion on the original motion? All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes
If
6-1.
if I may, Mr. Chairman, I didn't speak to this last weekend, but it might behoove like the commissioners to look at the process for how our dues are paid and why they are what they are. It was very interesting. MAC accepts the amount we send. The formula was skewed in such a way that we pay, if I remember right, and I'm leaning heavily on Michelle, it seems to me that we were paying $1 or $1.20 a resident in the county, where Wayne County is based partly on your population and partly on your SCVs. So we said, we That was a very unfair formula. We encourage MAC to relook at that formula, and rather than relook at the formula, they accept what we send them. We had sent them less, and I do believe we had raised it up than what we originally were paying them for the services. So it's quite interesting, and I think.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We now are at the administrator search update.
Yeah, before you leave, I have homework assignments for all of you. I have books for all of you. They are in total 328 pages. And I believe that Darcy, 69 applications, 67 are public, 2 are confidential. So what you'll have is a sheet here, and thank you for Darcy and Laurel and everybody else for doing this. And so you have a cover page here, and they're in alphabet order, and there's a page number to assign to their application, so you can refer to that. Also on the side, there's a A, B, and C rating. So if you rate them as we talked about, and next to the A, we put yes, that means you definitely want to interview them. B is maybe you want to interview them, and C is thank you for applying. And so if you could take these with you, deadline is Friday, July 29th. If you could then just take the sheet out, just the sheet here. Give that to me, either email me or call me, or somehow we'll get it from you. We'll compile that, and our next meeting is scheduled for August 4th, which we'll see where all 7 of you rate and see how close you are. Obviously, be very selective with your A's, because I don't think you want to invite 20 people to interviews. You know, so my suggestion, what I've done is do it first in pencil. That way, because you may think someone's at the beginning of this process, wow, this person has great ability, but as you get through the process, there's other people that have more qualifications. So my advice is do it first in pencil and come back, and then we'll go from there and see how 7 of you match up. So what I'll do is I'll take these sheets, once again, with all of you, I'll compile them so you have all the results of everyone and see how close we are. I've done this before sometimes, most of the time, actually people are pretty close in terms of their overview. Obviously, they'll think there's some difference of opinions, but go through them, take the time to read them. Like I said, all but 2, their names can be public, the 2 are confidential. So please do not share these books. If the public wishes to, they can come through me and we'll release the proper information, but keep those confidential. If you choose to pick those 2 to interview, and if they say yes, then their names become public. But until that time, they do have the right to stay confidential. So in the book, they are listed just as confidential, but you have all the material. So that's why I say do not share this. If the media something wishes to get that their name, they can go through me. We'll share the ones that are public, and we'll pull the confidential out. But July 29th, that's your homework assignment.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Darcy. We're now on our agenda, the community mental health.
Yeah, Mr. Wessel asked for this, but I can give you an update. As you know, this has been very controversial the last several months. If you've been following the media, there's been stories almost every week about the challenges with that. Grand Traverse County has taken the leadership and have been quite vocal in their concerns about the 6-county partnership. I have been, I think, in 4 meetings with the administrators or with the state reps on this topic. There's another 1 meeting scheduled in Cadillac, August 1st. Commissioner Russell was part of a meeting with all of the 6-county board chairmen and how to proceed. And I certainly don't want to speak on behalf of Grand Traverse County or their board, but they have been very vocal about their concern with the potential change in leaderships and the offer given to the interim director, how to proceed. And it's no secret because it's in the papers. They have made some changes on their delegation to community health because of those people took. They were contrary to what the board wished. There is some potential to find common ground. At the August meeting, you'll get a proposed letter of understanding that is being drafted among the 6 administrators and the counties how to proceed. the other counties feel, and I think Mr. Wessel might feel also, and I know the Grand Traverse County Administrator and some board members feel that we can solve these problems without completely dissolving the 6 county partnerships. Because if we do that, and I talked about this before, legally, it's a very complex process. All the assets have to be sold, including the building that's on Hall Street. As well, there's the issue of who's going to pick up the MERS pension liability. So, and we have to guarantee employment for 2 years for employees, and we have to issue a report to the state how services are going to continue. So it's a very complex process, but can we address the issues without going through that whole legal process? And we think we can by simply changing some of the bylaws and some of the articles of incorporation. Grand Traverse County said they may be interested if those issues are resolved in terms of what authority the county boards have also, in terms of their leadership teams and how they are structured, organized. 6 counties may want to have more authority, so the county boards have some final vote. Of course, so for example, we're just talking out loud here that if the Community Mental Health Board chooses a chief executive officer, that may have to be endorsed by the county boards also, and so forth. So there's a lot of dialogue there. That's just one example that's been, but it's all in the dialogue stages. But I think there's a meeting this Thursday, and I think the concern is if, and I think the Community Mental Health Board, and Mr. West can talk about that, is kind of split how to proceed. But I think if the board, Community Mental Health Board, chooses to offer the contract, the director position on a full-time basis, the current interim director, I think Grand Traverse County will officially ask to dissolve. And if that happens, if any of the 6 counties ask to it, it has to be dissolved. So this is critical. Mr. Russell has some strong feelings about that, and if you want to address those.
One of the issues with the Community Mental Health Board is, I believe that we have allowed the Community Mental Health Board to operate almost autonomously from both the consumer group and the county boards of commissioners. And I think we know that we need to redesign the authority. We also need to redesign how the board operates. It's a very hands-off model right now, the Carver model, to address that. But I also believe that change of leadership is necessary. We have been looking for a CEO for 10 months. We offered a contract to our first choice, and that was unsuccessful, and that reported. We then offered with less than a majority of the total board members a contract to the interim CEO. We have been 4 months negotiating with her. That contract has not been acceptable. It is still not signed, and I have added to the agenda for Thursday's meeting a motion to rescind that offer and reopen the search. But out of fairness to this board, because I'm your representative to the Community Mental Health Board, I offer this motion with a hope that you might direct me to vote to rescind the current offer that's in the hands of the interim CEO, but it has not been signed by the board chair or the CEO. There were issues of salary, there were issues of severance, and there were issues of some of the contract language. But I think it's significant that it's been 4 months and we still don't have a contract. And I think if we rescind it, we work on our board issues, we reopen the search, we have a good chance of maintaining a 6-county authority and continuing to serve our constituents. That is my motion. I'd like to make it, and we can talk about it. I move that the Leelanau County Board of Commissioners recommends to the Northern Lakes Community Mental Health Board to rescind the unsigned contract offer with current interim chief executive officer Joni Blamer and reopen the search process for a CEO. Item is on the agenda, and that is my motion.
Yeah, I'll support. I have a question for you. Is this interim director, was this position voted on to make her interim director?
Yes.
And was it a full board?
I think it was certainly a majority of the board to make her interim CEO while we searched. And she was encouraged to be a candidate for the CEO, but she did not emerge from that search as the number one choice. Other questions?
And the first choice, he didn't come because of the salary, right?
It was mostly salary. I need to say that Joni Blanger is a valuable member of the Northern Lake staff. She's done a good job in her previous positions, and I hope she'd stay, but I'm hoping that we can find a leader that will take it.
Well, the other issue that's undue on whoever's the interim, the concern is appointing a full-time director, not knowing what the future of the organization is. And it just seems logical, take away whoever the interim is because of the concerns Grand Traverse County has voiced, and now other counties have voiced some concerns. Those issues need to be resolved. The future of the six-county partnership needs to be resolved before there's a full-time director appointed, and the length of that contract also is an issue.
Any discussion for the motion?
Other than I can make a recommendation for an interim director that may be available as of January 1st. Great hair gentleman.
I wish you luck.
John's not completely great yet.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. You have the motion, clerk? All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you.
And we'll give you an update at the August 1st meeting. Or I'll give an update at the August meeting about the August 1st meeting. There may be a letter of agreement from the 6 counties that I may bring forward to the board of how to proceed.
Yeah, I would just like to say that I'm really uncomfortable throwing somebody off the job, but I'm trusting Chairman. What's
Well, but just for, she would not be out of a job. She has a position.
right?
This is just.
Without knowing more. It's very uncomfortable for us. We just don't know enough.
We thought it
That's
was
an
important to bring to
uncomfortable
this
thing
group
to
because
do
we
when you
really,
don't know.
when we talked to the Grand Traverse County and all of the county administrators from the 6 counties, they all said it's been too hands on and that we ought to involve boards. Thank you. We are now at the review of, I think we got through the agenda as modified as what, review of financials.
Darcy, this, in the late, like page 12, there was more, there was bacteria nitrate testing for the
Yes.
cars. So in last week's, they were in there twice and then they're in again.
Yes.
What is
When
that?
I talked to Jerry, he said they have to do those tests twice before they can actually open those wells up publicly.
Okay.
And they were not, I mean, they are legitimate bills.
Okay, so again, no duplication, it's just all perks tested.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I think that's my only question. In the bill, so I don't know if anybody else had any others.
I have one quick question. I noticed that, and I apologize, I don't have the page number,
That's
but
fine.
it was a repair and service for the Kubota tractor, the key switch. It was $424.72. My question is that the old Kubota or the new Kubota? If it's the new Kubota, that should be under warranty.
I took it to be, it's like page 7 or something.
Yeah.
For the RT, we need 900, probably for the RT, 900.
Page 7, I was right.
Which is old.
The old one, that's what I got too.
I assume that, but I wanted to know for sure.
Yeah.
I will get you an answer on that for certain.
Yeah, are we planning on selling that old tractor?
We trade that in. That was part of it.
Oh, it's already gone.
Yeah, this is a different.
So instead of using maybe Massey,
I don't.
Massey retreaters.
I don't think
Okay.
this actually.
I thought it was a Kubota. I could be wrong.
Yeah, we traded that in. That was part of the motion. And we got, I forgot what the retail value was. They took it off the price. So Darcy will get back to you on this.
Just send me an email, Darcy, if you don't mind.
Yes, I can do that.
Okay, sounds good.
Questions on the financials? I messed up. We did not set our meeting date, review our meeting date for September. And so we need to move up
Yeah.
into our agenda.
I made a note myself and I forgot about it too. So several of you have requested or expressed interest going to the Michigan Association of Counties Conference, annual conference. It concludes on the morning of the 21st. Our September meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, the 20th. So that would make it extremely difficult, almost impossible for people to go. The Tuesday night is usually their keynote speaker and the closing dinner and so forth. So we could move it, and I think at least 3 of you that I know have expressed interest in going. We could move it to either the next day, which is Wednesday the 22nd, or Thursday, which would be, or we could do it Wednesday the 21st or Thursday the 22nd of September.
Or we,
Or the week, yeah. I mean,
go to the 27th.
it'd be the 27th, yeah. The
I-
problem with that, in
I
October
have 2 meetings
is the
that
first
day.
Monday, so we're meeting back to back to back.
I have 2 meetings that day. There's no way
That's
I-
true, early October, yeah. Okay.
So it seems logical, the 21st or 22nd.
I
Either day will
prefer
work
the
for me.
22nd because we'll be driving home.
Yeah, it gets done the morning of the 21st.
Right.
At noon usually.
Yeah, but where did you say it was?
It's in
Port Huron.
Port Huron.
Oh, Fort Huron.
So that's a 4-hour drive. I'd like to not have to.
So the 22nd would be a Thursday.
That works for me.
It works for me.
That's our
Thursday.
anniversary.
Yeah.
I can't think of a better thing to do on my anniversary.
Of course not.
Anybody have a?
Okay, I don't know, I get too complicated. No.
We'll celebrate on the
Maybe put out
21st.
this
Rick,
week.
you can't make the
He's got
21st.
it.
Can you make the
Can you
21st?
It's an evening meeting.
21st, I can.
How
Yeah.
about the 26th?
The problem is that we're meeting in October the 1st
Yeah,
Tuesday, so.
it's almost gotta be the 21st.
And really though, even though something gets done by noon, from past experience, and
Yeah.
Commissioner Rush has been there, so they usually kind of wrap up before noon. And usually it's sack or box lunches to go.
Yeah.
So we should probably, I'm guessing we'll be done 10:30 or 11 o'clock at the latest. It's a 3-hour drive,
Yeah. We can do it.
I'd say 4.
maybe 4.
Yeah, coming across from Fort Huron on about 69. That's a long stretch.
It really is.
Everybody uses horse and buggy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
My car does. do that.
21st at 7 p.m.
yeah.
Do we need a motion to change our meeting date to the 21st of September?
It'd be helpful, yes.
I would make that motion to move our regular board meeting date from September 20th to September 21st. Do we want to keep the same start time? Starting at 7 p.m.
Second on that, anybody?
I'll second.
All those in support of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
And if you're interested in going to the MAD conference and you haven't told Laurel or myself you can do it, we'd like to register everybody at once. There's a little discount. We're still in the early bird stages. And the biggest issue is hotel. You want to be in a hotel at the conferences. And sometimes that's an issue to wait too long. Thank you.
Thank you. We now committee reports, recommendations, or resolutions of any sort. Special reports by staff, commissioners, or agencies.
The new playground set is up at Old Settlers Park. It's pretty exciting.
The pictures were great.
Anything else? Yes.
I'll just give a quick staff report under this. I just got done, I think today was day 5 of election training. I've trained probably over between 120 and 150 people so far, both Republicans and Democrats for the upcoming election. It's mandatory training every 2 years. And I just want, I'm not going to clear up, I'm not going to solve the problem, I'm not going to change anyone's mind. I'm well aware of that. We vote on paper ballots. We used emitting equipment. It was one of 3 available equipments that were authorized to be purchased. It was done in consultation with township clerks. The decision to do that rests solely with me, not with the township clerk. It is not up to the Board of Commissioners to determine if I'm going to sell that or pick a different vendor. It stays strictly with me. It's good equipment. Dominion does not program for our election. I use a different vendor. I had no intentions of programming. It is tested by the vendor that I chose to do the programming. It does multiple counties in the state. They test the program, I test the program. We test it against every ballot that is used in this county. It is tested extensively through my office, although not required. It is tested preliminarily by each township clerk, privately, and at a public accuracy test where people can come. I think I said we do vote on paper ballots, because I think that was a question. It would be illegal to think that we are going to hand count ballots after an election. They will be tabulated. We have an electronic voting system in the state of Michigan that has been approved. It's covered under Michigan compiled laws that we must use the system. We do hand counts of ballots when we audit. We audit after every election. Also, if there is a recount that is requested by someone, those ballots are counted by hand. They are not retabulated. So I just wanted to get that out there. When these public accuracy tests are held, everything is sealed. And on the morning of elections, part of this training is it's one Republican and it's one Democrat. You have to have the major parties present. And one of their very first jobs that they're doing the morning of the election before 7 o'clock, when you turn these machines on, is there's what's called a zero take. They're also verifying the serial and seal number of every voting machine used within that jurisdiction. When this zero take comes out, they are looking to make sure that they've got the correct machine in the correct precinct. The seal has not been broken since the date it was signed. It's still obviously fixed in the machine. This zero take is compared to every ballot to make sure all counters are at zero. Some townships have 2 ballot styles. In November, we'll see one jurisdiction with as high as 5 ballot styles due to commissioner district splits, a village split, and school district splits. They look at that whole tape looking for zero to make sure every office that's on there is accounted for. That zeros tape, once it's checked, all the workers present sign off on it, and it's connected to our first totals tape. So there is security, it is built in, but if someone thinks that the night of an election, we are going to be hand tabulating ballots, that's not going to happen. It just is not going to happen. I'm confident in the equipment. I believe it's safe. I believe it's secure. It is not hooked up to the internet. We take every precaution that we can possibly take. Ballots aren't being switched. Sometimes our candidates don't win. It's just part of life and we need to move on. We've had this equipment for more than 2 years. We've been using electronic voting systems for years. What we used prior to that was what people should be familiar with are the old lever machines that had the curtains there and you'd go in and you would click buttons. And then you'd pull the lever and the roll of paper would roll around and that's what cast your ballot. And what was bad about those is when people would vote those, if they had a question, they wouldn't think to just separate the curtain. They would pull their lever, stick their head out and say, I have a question. Well, it's too late. You just pulled the lever, you cast your vote. So at least now when people have questions, if it's before they get it in the tabulators are sensitive. We also have what's called a BAT system, a voter assist terminal, which allows people, especially in an August election, where they tend to split their ticket. They choose one party on the front, they get over to the side and they might see their friend running as a precinct delegate and they decide to cast the vote there. They try to put that in the tabulator, it's going to come back and say, you've done a party crossover. Do you wish to count this ballot or do you want to go get a new ballot? Someone that spoils a lot of ballots will put them on what's called a BAT. It's a voter assist terminal that's available to any voter. And no one's required to vote in the partisan portion of the ballot. It's their free choice if they want to. But if they do, it says, do you want to pick Republican or do you want to pick Democrat? And then they only give them those choices so they won't spoil that ballot. And I don't think what people realize is some people vote blank ballots. They want it to be recorded that they've shown up to vote, but they don't want to vote for anything on this ballot. But it'll tabulate that a vote was cast, but there will be no totals. Because rarely, if 1,000 people show up to vote, rarely do you have any candidates that get every single one of those votes. There were some other things. Getting that voter registration card. Everyone in this county should have received new voter registration cards. If you have not, you should be in contact with your township clerk. Those were sent out because we have new commissioner districts. We have to do that every 10 years. And everyone needs to be sent those ID cards. I don't find this horrific that there is a card coming out to a voter that's deceased. I can tell you that running to your township or county clerk is not the first place you're going to go when a relative dies. And if they died out of state, there are 38 states that interconnect so that you can keep these records. Township clerks are responsible for that, but we're trying to get movement so county clerks can. I'm one of the county clerks that will immediately cancel people if we know that we're deceased, but we need to be really careful about this when we get cards at our home or we hear that people are getting cards of people that don't live there. You better be darn sure that you don't have a protected voter on your hands. We are not going to take people off these rolls just because someone thinks that we should. Homeless people have a right to vote. Protected people have a right to vote. People that are US citizens that are born in another country have a right to vote, and they may pick Chet's address, Melinda's address, or my address. We also have to be very careful about our people that serve in the military. They have a right to an address, even if they've never lived. Well, I shouldn't say they probably lived there. It was probably their parents' address, but their parents may have moved on. So those are just a few things. But what a perfect way to find out if someone's deceased, if someone gets that card and we have proof, because we're not going to just mark someone deceased because there's nothing worse when they actually show up and they're alive. So we have to have verifiable proof when someone passes away, and we take copious notes about that. Where did we get the information from and who told us? Because if it comes back and someone's just trying to pull our string, we need to know there's processes to go through. We can't just be removing people, but this is a great way to do it when you send out these notices and they come back. We also, and I don't want to take up too much time, but also one of the things that you heard tonight is that we have more registered voters than the census. We always will. Leelanau County is that type of destination place. Census is only as good as the census is. If you live in a town or a village, you are not going to get a postcard in the mail to fill out that census. Census forms are only mailed to people that have street addresses, not POs. The census was set early. They didn't have enough workers, so people that lived in villages or towns did not get that information delivered to them. Plus, in a place like this, and last time we were sued on this, and it's all been proven that we are totally compliant. We don't have any fraud or anything like that going on. But you two fill out the census here at the end of the table. You move out, the next four move in. I'm already out of luck because you two filled out the census. You left the county, but then you were replaced by four more. So the census is only as good as it is on the day, and so many people don't even fill it out. So that's just a recap. I've got 5 more trainings to go, but I think I've done 5 up to this point. And I'm just meeting with some small groups that have an interest in this and an interest in learning, but I could keep you here for a couple hours. That's just a brief touch and trying to address a couple of comments from earlier.
Well, I really appreciate that because, as I've stated many times, it's so complex, the whole thing. So just for some people's peace of mind, could you make up your own ballot, fill in the dots yourself, and send it through the machine? And
you do that whenever you vote. Are you talking about for testing?
For testing,
sure, you could, but there's a grid that you have to make sure. We are testing these internally because we're making making sure that it will not accept. I did a training today and I put a ballot through and I specifically loaded a specific precinct in. And I put a different ballot in and it showed how it went in and it popped right up because the timing marks, nothing matches up. We are looking for crossover votes. We are looking for wrong ballots. We are testing everything. The fact that you are using predetermined test decks, it is no different than what I would make up, and it doesn't affect what you are doing. And to go one step further, if you've heard the Sharpie debate, you shouldn't use Sharpies. Yes, we absolutely should. I actually purchased them out of my budget to use in every jurisdiction in this county. It's the fastest drying ink on the market. Will it bleed through a ballot? Absolutely. Do I care? Absolutely not. The holes, the ovals that you color in on a ballot, they do not line up from front to back. Now, if you want to be that person to prove me wrong and hold your Sharpie there, well, it bleeds across the ballot. Well, I can't do anything about that. So we could, and if the state says it's not allowable, of course, we wouldn't do it and we can fill them all in. We've done it both ways. Anyway, that's all I got.
Thank you very much. And Michelle, I asked you to do this a couple of months ago because you did a report at Rotary. It was so well received. Thank you very much. And thanks for what you do.
Just one last update. And that's just to simply say that the broadband project is moving right along. Dr. Chris Scherer this morning, and the point folks are started. And I think that we can look for, they're still optimistic that they'll be able to finish within 2 years. And we have been meeting with people, with internet service providers for the 4 remaining townships and are making some good progress there. So hopefully in a few months, we'll be able to say those 4 townships are completed as well in terms of having a contract. So.
Anything else? Okay, we're now in our agenda at the second public comment section. Anybody? Yes, Jen. Welcome.
Thank you. John passed out his packet from yesterday, and so I just wanted to touch base. Oh, I'm sorry, Jennifer Zawicki, Cedar, Michigan. And then I also am Chief Deputy County Clerk, and for a short time, Finance Director. I wanted to say publicly that I appreciate the opportunity yesterday to be called into the meeting regarding finance and audit and having the opportunity to go ahead and state what I had found with the audit and being the finance director and what that means to me. So the packet that John handed out to you, this packet here, if you would just take a look for me, under the March 17th bullet point, it says March 17th, 2022, email from and by Jennifer Zawicki explaining how Fund 799 was being administered, which included a transaction history report showing auditor adjustments. Evidence that this fund was adjusted annually by our auditors through 2012 and again in 2019 and in 2020. So I did make a few notes on mine. The copy that I handed out to you is highlighted. It is highlighted to state that Darcy Weaver on Wednesday, July 13th of 2022, forwarded this email to John Gallagher, the county treasurer, in regards to the forwarding of the district court balancing fund, along with a PDF from 1998 to 2021. That is true. It appears from this email. I myself sent this Jennifer Zawicki on Thursday, March 17th, 2022 at 1:08 p.m. to John Gallagher and Darcy Weaver. You will see that I CC'd the team, which is your audit team, of Mary Lane, Paul Motz, and Evan Rummel. My subject is the District Court Balancing Fund. Yesterday, when I was sitting over here, Mr. Gallagher asked me if I was going to throw stones. It would appear after re-listening to that last night and going through the notes today that I hadn't really absorbed the stones that he had already thrown at me, probably over the last few years, but so much so within these last months. So when Commissioner Robbins asked me, when I contacted John and Darcy, did I document it? I was a little taken back. It was a surprise to me. Why would John Gallagher and Darcy Weaver lie or not remember that the three of us would have met. I found that very strange. As the finance director, newly appointed by Chet Janik, why would I need to worry that the treasurer's office would deny, like John did, saying no, or abstain like Darcy did?
Would you address the?
Oh, sorry, yes. I just wanted to state that in the records behind my email, the transaction history that's stated, there's an underline that says 2012. That 2012 is a PBC. It's called prepared by client. That does mean that the treasurer's office was doing these journal entries up until 2012. The entries from 19, 20, and 21 are by your auditors. Due to GASB 84, the cash has to be moved from the district court and put into the general fund to be absorbed and then moved back the next January. That's what those entries are there. So I just wanted to point that out. I do want to take and thank Commissioner Robbins that you were concerned about my CYA, but I do think that I'm not the one that needs to worry about my CYA, as this email states at the very bottom to Mr. Gallagher and Ms. Weaver. Since we now know what we know, I presume that you may want to treat this account like the circuit court checking account. So I just wanted you to know publicly, and it's my integrity, because it really bothered me yesterday, that I did talk with them on the 16th. And on the 17th, I followed up with an email and the correspondence that they would need, that I thought, as I had reported to the auditors, that it needs to be treated like the circuit court checking account. So thank you.
Any other public comment? Yes.
My name's Harry Stephens. I live in Leelanau Township. I'm 73 years old. I've been here, a county resident my whole life. I've held positions, low positions. I was for example, I was a cemetery sexton for a number of years, a job that my father took over. And anyway, I'm upset about the 2020 election. And it's because that 2020 election was hacked, rigged. I don't care what you want to call it, but it happened. And I'm upset about it. And it's not because I'm a Republican. I'd be just as upset if the Republicans were the ones that won. That's not the point. So what happened up here in Antrim County, that we all know about Antrim County. And what did the clerk say? It was a programming error. Okay, just recently down in Georgia, they had a run of 3 Democrats down there. The front runner had 0 votes. So they went into the machine, they see what happened. And the Secretary of State said, it's a programming error. Well, how can you have a programming error in a machine if it's not programmed? So I disagree with what Michelle said. And I think these machines are a problem. I think they should be gotten rid of. And I think the sooner the better. We can't trust them. And even if you do think you can trust them, if there's any doubt, why put up with it? Our vote is too important. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Any commissioner comment? Yes.
I have a couple. Jen, I know I directed it to you yesterday. That goes to anybody in this room. If you're gonna do business, you know, you gotta, in today's world, you gotta document. It wasn't, I wasn't picking on you as across the board, so I want to get that straight. The other thing is I want to share quite a bit, and people ask me, it's about you, Mr. Russell. about you being chair, and I want to say, the last 3 months, you've been doing a great job as our chair.
Any other commissioner comments? Yes, Patricia.
This has been a really difficult period. And I just want to thank Jen for all of her work and thank our clerk for all of her work, not only on the budget, but on everything she did. And I'm kind of assuming, Commissioner Robbins, that was an apology to Jen for misjudging since she just produced the documentation.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah. So I think we're at a point where hopefully we can move on and find ways to work together on difficult issues. But this has been, I know, a lot of bitter pills for many people. Not just for the personal assault, but more for things that were done that weren't done maybe the best that they could have been. So we're at a change point, and hopefully we can find a way to improve and move forward and gain a little bit of confidence in this board that we can indeed address the problems that come before us.
We, amendments and transfers.
I move we approve amendment number 22-006.
I'll support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Who seconded that? Sorry. Thank you.
Amendment and no fund. I would move we approve claims and accounts $115,025.62.
Support.
Support say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
And we move to approve post audit $1,668,102.80.
Support.
Favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion